All right. Good evening, everybody. If you can just let me know if you can hear me okay. Just give me a thumbs up. All right. Thank you, Amy and Marisa. Good to be with you all this evening. We'll go ahead and join palms as we get started. And you can repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. And keeping the palms joined. All right, you can put the palms down. Thanks all for being here this evening. Welcome to Intro to Buddhism and Meditation. My name is Jeff. I'll be leading you all tonight. I always like to start out with a question, just to kind of give us a little bit of time for everybody to jump on and join and get settled in before we start the meditation practice. Also gives you all an opportunity to just communicate a little bit with each other, even though you're just kind of seeing names on the screen, just to share some thoughts. So so my question for you all, let's see how to phrase this. Question to get started is, how do you find, how can I word this? How successful, I don't want to say how good are you, but how successful are you at when everything is just a kind of crazy, hectic mess? How successful are you at using the practice to just come back to settling into this moment? Yeah, I think I'll leave that as the question. So when you're having just kind of a big, hectic, crazy mess of a day or of a moment or whatever it might be, um, how well are you able to just come back to present moment with sensation of breath or joining palms or hitting the bell or whatever it might be? How easy is that for you? How challenging is it for you? So I'm going to go ahead and type that in for those who maybe jump on late. How well are you able, if I could type here would be good. How well are you able to come back to present moment in the middle of, let's just call it chaos? Easy or not so easy? How well are you able to come back to present moment in the middle of chaos? Easy or not so easy? So there's the question, and we'll take a few moments as people join on here. I think it's something over the years for me that's been most beneficial with practice is, every day is filled with tremendous amounts of difficulty, challenges, chaos, some more so than others. And, they all create opportunities to practice coming back to present moment or opportunities to spiral into more madness and more chaos. I'm always amazed, and I know this from years of past experience, how much some external chaos, really things that maybe don't have anything to do with us, how much that can translate into us creating even more chaos. So with the practice of, and it literally, I mean, for me, the practice is simply the joining of the palms, or um, gently shutting the eyes and taking the 3 deep breaths, or simply the sound of a bell, whatever it might be. Are you able to use something as a trigger to come back? And I found over the years, for someone who grew up with lots of anger or depression or whatever it might be, that the ability to just come back and be present is incredibly important. So we'll take a few moments. Feel free to just, if you're new to joining us, welcome. You'll see on the screen there, you can just type in your thoughts. Let's see, Adam, not very easy, but I find the more I practice, the more I'm able to come back to present moment. Yeah, definitely. And again, that's why we call it a practice. It's not simple. It is difficult and challenging. Cynthia, same here, Adam. So yes, I think many would probably agree it's not easy, and that's why I bring it up. It is part of the journey. Marisa, getting better at it, but I also still revert to my old habit of throwing arrows a lot. Yeah, and for those who aren't familiar with the arrow reference, there's a Buddhist teaching called the second arrow, and the first arrow is really that first initial pain or chaos. Maybe it's physical pain or emotional pain. It's just one moment of something arising. And that's the first arrow. And then what we tend to do is throw on so many more arrows. We have physical pain, and then we're angry because there's physical pain. And then we're sad because we're angry because there's physical pain. And then we're depressed because we're sad because we're angry because there's physical pain. So there's a constant kind of spiraling of emotions. Excuse me. Roberto, most times I'm fairly successful at coming back to the present moment during chaos. It's doing it during the mundane times I forget and struggle. Yeah, definitely. And it's, as I've said already 5 times, it's definitely a practice. Amy, it varies depending upon whether I've got other things triggering me. Yeah, it's important too, just to recognize how many things may be triggering us at that present moment. It's like there's a trigger, come back to breath. There's a trigger, come back to breath. There's a trigger, come back to breath. So it really is this constant coming back to breath. Benton, learning, repeating to not react so quickly, but to observe. Definitely. The observation is really what it's all about, to just recognize, here's the chaos, here's the trigger, here's the stress, here's the anxiety. And just observe it, but not allow it to kind of destroy you. Samir, very difficult building resilience to the world, though. Yeah, definitely. Again, you're all kind of on the same path, which is why we're all here. Benton, and realize it's an opportunity to practice, definitely. And in that moment, to me, it's kind of like, okay, this is what I've been working on for all these years. This is where I just want to come back to the present moment and be with things as they are. So, all right, anything else before we move on, and we'll start the meditation practice. All right, so with that, we'll go ahead and we'll sit. There's a couple things to tell you before we begin. Nothing's going to happen to you. You won't float away. You won't have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice, meaning don't ask yourself, is it working? Is it not working? Am I doing it right or wrong? We're just going to sit. We're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds inside the room, sounds outside. This is life. Life is filled with chaos, and the practice of meditation is learning to get quiet and still within all the chaos. So posture, you just want to be comfortable. If you're on a cushion, it helps slide into the front third. Pushing the stomach forward allows the back to straighten. Shoulders are relaxed. Hands are on the knees or in the lap, whatever's comfortable. If you're on a chair or couch or whatever you're sitting on, just try to rest the shoulders, rest the hands. Try to stay upright so you can stay awake. I will guide us as we begin, and we will settle into a little bit of silence. And starting with the eyes closed if comfortable, or slightly open, mouth open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths slowly. And eventually, we'll settle into a natural rhythm of the breath, knowing throughout the practice you'll hear sounds inside the room, outside. These are not distractions, not disruptions, simply what's happening around us as we sit. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Start with gently guiding the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath. And as the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it, release that thought, return attention, focus to the breath. Where's your mind? Lost in thought? Return attention, focus to the breath. Letting go of expectations, letting go of judgment from the practice. Just sitting, breathing. Learning to be comfortable in stillness, in quiet, simply sitting, breathing. keeping the mind alert, aware of each sound, each thought, each physical sensation, yet concerned with nothing but sitting, breathing. And with the body still, rested, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds, and the mind learning to settle, know what it's like to just sit and breathe, knowing with each breath there's nothing else to do, nowhere else to go, no one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. And once again, taking 3 deep breaths slowly. And as you slowly open the eyes, slowly begin to move. And most important, with the practice of meditation, is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet and calm and still, or a busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, has nothing to do with anything I said. It's nothing to do with how we sit and hold the hands across the legs. It's not from the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It has everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samuppada, dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakened. He was a human being no different than any one of us who began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. And what that means very simply, for every one of us, regardless of where you come from or what you believe in or where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with moments of things happening, and you react. More stuff happens, more reactions. This is it. Now, most people respond to meditation quietly, peacefully, still. The question is, how do we respond to everything else that's happening throughout our day? And for most of us, the last 20 minutes is quite different from the other moments of our day. So all we're working on is closing the gap to where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful, whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. This practice is not easy. Training the mind is probably the most difficult thing you'll ever have to train. but it's also the most important. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. It's becoming aware of what you think, what you say, and what you do every moment. It's learning to be kind to yourself and everyone you encounter every moment. It is not an escape. It is direct perception into present. And very often that present moment is filled with difficulties, challenges, chaos, as I alluded to earlier. And in these moments, we practice responding with kindness, compassion, understanding. As I speak about often, the practice of the 6 Paramitas, the 6 perfections. This is the Bodhisattva path. To practice generosity, morality, patience, diligence, concentration, and wisdom in all of your moments. So Buddhist practice is not this thing outside of everyday life. It is everyday life. Buddhist practice is not something you go to. It's not a class. It's not outside of anything you're doing. Every conversation you have, every meal you have, every shoe you put on, everything you're doing in each moment of your life is your practice. And we work on cultivating wisdom and compassion through the practice of the Paramitas. Can I be generous and giving of my time, my attention, my heart to this moment, to this person, to this place? Can I be honest with myself and others and have a level of morality and decency to where we cause no harm? Can I be patient with myself and others in every moment? With those around me, those I know and love, the strangers? Can I have patience? Can I be diligent? This was the last thing the Buddha said before he died. Strive on with diligence. They were worried about who was going to teach when he was gone. He said, I've left you the teaching, strive on with diligence. Be a light unto yourself. So can we work hard at cultivating wisdom and compassion? Can we work hard at everything we do all day long? Can we be diligent? Can we cultivate a level of concentration and focus on the present moment? If we stay present, all of the sadness and anger of past is not there. If we stay present and concentrate on this moment, all of the fears and worries and anxieties of the future are not there. Now, this doesn't mean, and this is to me is what the last Paramita is really about, which is wisdom. Can we stay present, focused, concentrate in this moment, but be wise enough to understand that there is a world that we are engaged in? There are things happening all around us. So the practice is to bring generosity, morality, patience, diligence, concentration, and wisdom into our everyday life. This is the practice of the 6 Paramitas. Sounds simple, easy to memorize, and incredibly difficult to do. But that's why we're here. So with that, I always prefer to use the remaining time to open up to questions. For those who are joining us for the first time, possibly, welcome. Feel free, there's a chat box there. Feel free to type in your questions. I'd much rather respond to what's on your mind with regards to Buddhist teachings, Buddhist practice, meditation, anything you're sitting with. And as I was saying, I prefer to respond to your questions and use those for the last bit of time we have here tonight. So just type your question in and I will respond. I talk about the Paramitas a lot because I think it really is for me, it's the heart of the practice. It's the heart of the teachings I've always learned. My first master, it's what she taught. And it just clicked to me. It just made sense that if you bring these teachings, these paramitas into your life, then things will be better for you and those around you. And they're not easy. I first heard them 18 years ago, and they're still a challenge. They're still difficult. So it's not something that you work on for 6 weeks and all of a sudden you're done. It's also not something that you want to get into judging or critiquing yourself too much around either. Be patient with yourself as you practice these. And this is where the diligence comes in. Don't stop practicing them. Don't give up on them. Always come back to them. To me, it's like it's just coming home to the practice of the paramitas. Because if this path that the Buddha taught is to eliminate, reduce, end suffering, then we begin to recognize that, as the Buddha taught, all suffering exists in our mind and is created from our mind. So with the practice, we can reduce this suffering. And if we experience less dukkha, less suffering, then we will bring less suffering to others. If you're angry and miserable all day long, then that's a lot of what's going to get shared with those around you. So, all right, questions, meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with that I can address. You just mentioned while we eat. Do we know much about the Buddha's diet? Was he a vegetarian? Yes, we know about his diet. And technically, no, he was not a vegetarian. But let me explain what the teachings are on the way the Buddha lived. So they went, as you may know, every day begging for alms. And they would get up early and they would go out for their alms round begging for food. And they would go, I always say door to door, but place to place. And they would put their head down as a sign of humility. And they would raise the bowl up. And food would then get put into the bowl. They would then come back, they would gather, and they would then share the food that was offered to them. And what was in it, they split up amongst the monks and nuns, and that's what they ate. Now, the question around being a vegetarian, let me start by saying that one of the fundamental precepts in Buddhism, no lying, no killing, no stealing, no sexual misconduct, and no intoxicants or anything that alters a state of mind. The practice of no killing, to do no harm, to cause no harm. So this is a lot where I think people get a little confused on the way the Buddha lived and ate, and then the teaching on non-harming. So let me try to clarify this for you. The Buddha taught do not harm, right? What often in English gets translated as not killing, which is also harming. But the precept is not just not killing, it's to do no harm. So if you think about, and I'll come back to the Buddha in a minute, if you think about when we eat, if we eat meat, if we eat fish, if we eat anything like that, harm has been caused for us to consume that food. So when the Buddha would come back and sit down with the disciples, whatever was there, they split that up and they ate that. And he said there were 3 conditions for them to be allowed to eat any sort of meat or fish. And it was 1, if they didn't see it be killed. 2, if they didn't hear it be killed. And 3, if it wasn't killed specifically for them. So if those 3 conditions were met, they didn't see it be killed, they didn't hear it be killed, and it wasn't killed specifically for them, then they would take the offering and they would eat it. So often people, I would say, justify, this is always a fun topic, especially in a room full of 80 people. People will always, or often I hear them justify, well, the Buddha ate meat, so should I. The Dalai Lama eats meat, so should I. This is often people's justifications. And my response always is, well, the Buddha and the Dalai Lama also say you should practice kindness and compassion always. Do you do that? The response to that is usually no. But for some reason, we want to justify the eating thing. It's like we want to pass on that. We want a green light. We want to know that the Buddha ate meat so we can justify us eating meat, potentially. Now, I'm not a big preacher on precepts. I share them as I understand them. I also understand that each person is on their own journey and their own path, and anytime I do a talk on the precepts, I know that probably half the people there are going home and having a steak dinner or a burger and drinking their wine or beer. So I'm not one who preaches precepts not aware of the people I'm with, right? I think it's important that we become aware of what the precepts are and that we practice them in our lives as much as possible. I don't believe they should be forced. Again, I'm talking about lay people, most of you, right? I think it's also important that we recognize that our choice to eat meat or fish or whatever it is very different from the conditions of how the Buddha was given the food. Now, if you want to go begging door to door and put your head down and hold a bowl up and whatever goes in it, you eat it just out of gratitude and having food to eat, then try that. But that's very different from us roaming grocery store aisles and picking and choosing, or going to a restaurant and picking and choosing. It is impossible for us to consume any sort of animal product without harm having been caused. So I'll never forget years ago, one of the college kids, they were talking about fishing being a meditative experience. And it was actually Brent. And he said, they were talking about it being peaceful. And he said, fishing is only peaceful if you cannot hear the screams, silent screams of the fish. So it's to recognize, you all are free to choose to eat whatever you want. But harm is caused for that to happen. Someone else once said to me, well, what I do is they said that they send gratitude to the animal, or they send blessings to the animal. And my response, just to challenge this person a little bit, was, I don't think the animal wants your blessings or your gratitude. They probably didn't want to be slaughtered. So these are things that, for me, each individual, like everything in Buddhist teaching, should explore in their life. How and why they consume what they consume, and the impact and the suffering that is caused for this consumption. So Yeah, so there's an answer to your question, Samir. And in fact, it's actually, there was, when he died, he was pretty sick at that. He was 80 years old, and he was pretty sick. And the last meal was actually some meat that was poisoned. It was foul. It wasn't, to my understanding, like an attempt to poison or kill the Buddha. It was just foul meat that, because of it, was poisonous. And he decided to take the offering as a sign of gratitude for the offering and eat that, and that was it. The offering of alms is a really beautiful practice. Here in San Diego, you can go up to during non-pandemic, non-COVID times, although they're still probably operating there in this manner, but I would just check in to be very careful. But every morning up at Wat Metta Metaphors Monastery, Ajahn Jeff, Tansar Bhikkhu, and the monks, they go on their alms round every morning, and you can actually participate in putting food into the bowl. It's a really beautiful practice. So, good question, Samir. Other questions, now that you're all pondering what you eat. And that's what I think, that's the important part is for me, that's one of the beautiful things I love about sharing the Dharma, is creating conditions for people to think, right? And when I said that earlier about the precepts, that everyone's at their own pace, at their own time, I'm not one that thinks we should force ourselves and walk around with this tremendous sense of guilt. But I do think we should be aware of what we're doing and how we're causing harm. So, there's a great organization called Dharma Voices for Animals, and Bob Isaacson runs it. And just the premise of it is, the animals, they don't have a voice. They can't scream at you and tell you that they don't want to be tortured or slaughtered. So this organization gives them a voice, and I think it's really beautiful. Other thoughts, questions? Meditation, Buddhist practice. Do you think we are causing harm to eat dairy? Yeah, definitely. There's lots of movies out there, documentaries. Maybe I'll put a list together, or I'll get a list from some people who know even more than I do about this. But the dairy industry, I think, is pretty bad. A lot of suffering. Again, we use these kind of labels as, I'm not a vegetarian, I'm a vegan, or I'm not a vegan, I'm a vegetarian, or I just eat fish, or, we kind of, I think very often I hear people label themselves or kind of describe certain things, and we are so good at justifying why we do things. I mean, that was like my biggest hurdle with this practice for so long. I had justifications for everything. I'm not ready to do this, and this is why. And I think being very honest and trying to drop those justifications. And I know for me as a practitioner, for many years I was able to say, or I would say, I'm just not ready to do this yet, or I'm not doing this yet, or I can't do this yet. But I stopped justifying it. It's one thing to say, for example, if someone says, I just can't stop eating meat, then that's where you're at. But to try to justify it and say, well, it's not causing harm and animals were put on the earth for us to eat, I just think that's kind of absurd, to be quite honest with you. I think to be honest about what we're not ready to do is part of honesty in facing your actions, your karma. So the dairy industry causes so much suffering to animals. And again, I'm not an activist on that regard, so I don't study it intensely the way a lot of people I know do. But I know it causes a lot of harm. And so as we continue to consume, dairy, we're basically saying it's okay to cause harm. So, simple answer, Janet, yes. We are causing harm. We're contributing to the production of dairy, which causes harm. Other questions? Meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with? It's always fun to me to see what direction these times go to. Sometimes light and gentle, sometimes real heavy stuff. And that's really all part of the practice. It's partially these topics is part of what I mean when I say Buddhist practice doesn't necessarily make your life easier. A lot of people, their life is a crazy, hectic mess, and they want to run to Buddhism thinking it's going to make their life better and fix things. And I do believe that it'll make your life better and fix things, but not initially. Initially, it's like throwing a wrench in all of your plans and all of your ways of being. When you look at your actions very honestly, if you try every day to think good thoughts, speak good words, do good deeds, that's going to ruin a lot of your days because it's so different from what we normally do. We spend so much time focused on me, me, me. What do I want? What do I need? What do I get? And in Buddhist practice, there's no me. You take yourself out of the equation. You are still there. You are still important. You still exist, but you exist completely differently from how you perceive yourself. And therefore, you become no greater or less than any other sentient being, any other human, any other animal, any other insect. I'm pretty sure we don't want them stomping on us and slaughtering us and putting hooks in our mouths. So why would it be okay for us to do that to them? So it really is it's a challenge. It's a difficult practice. Any other questions? We'll do one more question before we close. But it is my favorite doing this, a talk on the precepts or on the eating or not eating of meat and all that stuff in the evening time, because then people are figuring out what they're going to have the rest of the night. So at least think about it. Any other final thoughts or questions before we wrap up? All right, so I'll go ahead and close on that. We'll join palms, we'll do a transfer of merit, and then I'll make a couple quick announcements. And then we'll be done. So palms are joined. May the benefit of this practice be shared with all beings in all directions. May all be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to those who need it most. So, couple quick announcements. Thanks all for being here. My name is Jeff. I'm a Dharma bum. We opened up the Dharma Bum Temple 14 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. So thanks for showing up. We have classes every night, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday on YouTube, and Saturday morning. I do Tuesday nights at 7, Saturdays at 11. Everything else is on Zoom. We have the Recovery Sangha. We closed in March, so we're coming up on 11 months that we've actually been closed due to the pandemic. But we were able to, within the first really 3 or 4 weeks, transition probably 90% of what we do all online. So our full schedule is online, recovery classes, battling addiction. We have our family group, teenage group, our college group. Monday through Friday mornings, we meet at 8 to 9 a.m. So everything virtually. Always grateful to the tremendous volunteer team that makes everything happen. Our book study is up and running again. We started that about a month ago. Pristine Mind by Orjin Choang Rinpoche, a great Tibetan teacher. So you can join that. That's every other week. So there's always something going on. We don't have plans to reopen anytime soon. We'll continue to stay safe and be smart to not put anyone at risk. We miss seeing everybody as much as you do, but we just don't want to put anyone in jeopardy of getting sick. So we will stay closed. Buddha for You is also closed. That is available online now. If you need books or anything like that, you can go to Buddha for You website, shop online there for any of that stuff. Yeah. Other than that, we will, I promise, have our virtual volunteer meeting soon. And I just appreciate you all being here. Please stay home as much as possible. Wear a mask. Again, let's not do anything that puts anybody at risk of getting sick. So I find it a great bodhisattva Buddhist practice to stay home and wear a mask for the benefit of all sentient beings. So I wish you well, be safe, and we'll see you again soon.